The morning sun bled through the haze over the training grounds, casting long shadows on the dust. As the recruits gathered around the range, laughter echoed sharp and careless, a sound born of confidence and ignorance. Among them stood a woman, quiet, and still her uniform crisp, her eyes focused on the horizon while others joked about breakfast and sleep. She adjusted her gloves in silence, the kind of silence that carried weight, though no one noticed. Not yet they looked at her. Plain face. The unmarked sleeves and saw only a rookie. The sergeant barked orders calling the recruits to the line, each one eager to show off to outdo the rest. The woman stepped forward without rush, her movements deliberate, controlled, but soft enough to go unnoticed. The recruit beside her whispered something smug. The others chuckled. She offered no reply, only a faint breath. That might have been a sigh, might have been something else. Then the sergeant called for ready fire. The line erupted in gunfire brass, raining down like golden rain and smoke rising into the morning air. Her shots came slower than the rest, precise, rhythmic, one after another. She hit the target's dead center, but no one was watching. They were too caught up in their own noise when the line fell silent. The instructor moved down, inspecting scores. He stopped at hers, frowned, then double-checked the paper, his expression unreadable. The other recruits leaned in, whispering, curious, uncertain, what had caught his eye. She stepped, back without a word, her gaze steady on the sergeant, who finally looked up at her with a strange measure of respect that no one could name. Later in the mess hall, the talk spread like wildfire about the quiet rookie who outshot everyone. Rumors mixed. With disbelief, some said it was luck. Others called it a trick. The sergeant kept his silence, only glancing her way once with eyes that held questions no one dared ask. She sat alone at the corner table, eating slowly, her movements precise like everything else about her. The noise of the room faded around her until the sound of boots on the floor broke through, heavy steps, measured, deliberate, the kind of sound that drew attention. The base commander entered, flanked by two officers. Conversation died. Instantly, his gaze swept the room before settling on her. The rookie still eating, still calm. The commander gestured and the sergeant moved toward her, calling her to stand. The others watched, silent, their earlier laughter gone, curiosity twisting. Into tension, she rose quietly, tray in hand, and walked toward the officers. The commander spoke low words that carried authority and something else, the kind of tone that hinted at recognition. The sergeant's brow furrowed as he glanced at the insignia faintly visible on her dog tag, and then she reached into her pocket. The room seemed to shrink as she drew something from her pocket, a small, worn velvet case. The color faded from years of handling. She placed it on the table between herself and the commander. The sergeant leaned forward, his breath caught unsure. What he was about to see. The silence stretched tight until the commander nodded and she opened the case, slowly revealing a glint of metal that caught the dim light like a spark. The first metal lay there, the purple hue deep against the velvet, the shape unmistakable. The silence deepened until even the hum of the lights seemed to stop. No one spoke as she reached into the case again, lifting another metal. Placing it beside the first, the commander's eyes narrowed slightly as if trying to reconcile what he was seeing with the records in his mind. The sergeant took a half step back, his hand brushing the edge of the table. The recruits behind him exchanged uncertain glances, their earlier bravado slipping away as if something cold had passed through them. She laid down a third medal, then a fourth, each one with deliberate care, until the last rested beside the others. 5 purple hearts lined up like a row of secrets. The commander exhaled slowly, his voice quiet but firm, asking her where she had earned them. She looked up, her gaze steady, unflinching, and said nothing, the kind of silence that holds entire histories. Her hand brushed the edge of one medal as if recalling something only she could see. The commander waited, but she gave no answer. Instead, she asked permission to return to her duties. He hesitated, then nodded slowly, watching her turn and walk out, leaving behind 5 medals and a room of men who suddenly felt very small. Outside, the sun had begun to set, painting the horizon in shades of red and gold. She walked along the tarmac, her boots striking rhythm against the concrete, the air heavy with the smell of fuel and dust. She paused at the edge of the runway, watching a jet roar overhead. Its shadow cutting across her face, the memories came uninvited. The sand, the sound of gunfire, the screams of men caught between duty and fear. She closed her eyes, forcing the images away, but they clung to her mind like smoke, refusing to fade. Back in the mess. "Hall!" The recruits spoke in hushed tones. None of them laughed. Now some avoided looking at her when she returned, others simply stared, unable to meet her eyes. When they did, it was brief and full of questions that none dared to voice. The sergeant approached her later, his voice low, saying that the commander wanted to see her again. She nodded once without expression, standing slowly, the medals still on the table behind her, the faint light glinting off them as if they were alive, each one, whispering stories no one was yet ready to hear. The commander led her down a narrow hallway, the walls lined with plaques and photographs of men and women who had gone before them, each step echoing hollow and sharp in the quiet corridor. She walked with measured precision, boots striking the floor in rhythm, her mind replaying years she had tried to bury the faces of friends, lost missions that had ended in fire and smoke. The commander said nothing, his presence quiet but imposing, the weight of his gaze settling on her like a test that could not be measured by words. They entered a small office, cluttered with maps, radios, and coffee stains, the smell of ink and paper heavy in the air. The commander gestured for her to sit, and she did slowly, hands resting lightly on the edge of the desk. He leaned back in his chair, eyes scanning her with a mixture of curiosity and calculation. Finally, he spoke, asking about her record, her missions, the awards, the pain behind each medal. Her eyes met his steady and calm, revealing nothing. She simply replied with facts. Her voice even measured the commander. Listened intently, jotting notes every word she spoke, adding to the growing tension in the room. Outside the window, the sun dipped lower, shadows stretching across the base. The hum of engines and distant shouts carried faintly through the glass. She could feel the energy of the place waiting for something to break the silence. Her jaw tightened slightly, the memories pressing behind her eyes. She shifted subtly, leaning forward. The commander paused pensively, sensing the restraint in her posture. The story untold, heavy and alive between them like a predator, waiting for the right moment to strike. A sharp knock at the door startled the quiet space. A young officer entered, hesitating slightly before speaking that a new mission required immediate attention. Her gaze flicked toward the map pinned to the wall. Multiple coordinates highlighted in red, a dangerous area known for ambushes and enemy fire. The commander nodded, slowly gesturing for her to stand. She rose quietly, the medals tucked under her jacket like silent witnesses. The officer glanced at her with curiosity, his eyes lingering on the faint shimmer, as if sensing the depth behind the quiet girl he had no idea what lay hidden beneath. As they moved down the hallway, the base seemed to breathe around them, voices fading into murmurs, footsteps soft against the floor, the tension thick as everyone who saw her wondered what she carried inside her mind. No one dared ask the stories that had earned her the 5 Purple Hearts, each step closer to the mission weighing heavier on her shoulders. And yet she moved forward without hesitation, the calm that cloaked her presence a thin line between control and the storm that waited just beneath the surface. Outside the hangar, the jet-weighted engines idling low, a mechanical growl that matched the pounding of her heart. She approached slowly, checking every panel and gauge, the officer hovering nearby, unsure how to interact. Her hands steady her mind, already running calculations, contingency after contingency. The commander's eyes followed every movement, noting the quiet precision, the confidence hidden in the calm exterior. She paused briefly, looking at the sun setting behind the mountains, and then stepped into the cockpit, ready to face what no one could yet imagine, leaving everyone watching tense and uncertain of what would happen next.